Welcome back to Club Red Fern at the League on Sunday, work on Mondays. Now we're joined by former West...
Book launch.
Yeah, the book launch.
Yeah.
Sorry. Now we're joined by former West Magpies hooker, Allan Fallah. How are you today, Al?
You're good, mate. Really good.
That's good, man. How you find the event?
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's the title of the book says it all. You know, it's the type of thing you'd be walking past a bookstore, you'd see that, and you want to grab it and have a look and see what's inside.
Mate, and what was your occupation when you were playing?
School teacher.
School teacher?
In fact, that was always my priority when I was playing football. All through uni, the main focus was getting through uni and getting my degree and getting a job. So I was actually training with Souths in the pre-season in 1982, I think it was. Bill Anderson was the coach, and I remember being at Redfern Oval and pre-season training, and I was going to sign with Souths, and back in those days, you got a telegram telling you where your first posting was, and I got my telegram. It said you've been sent to Oberon.
Oh,
and
wow.
I thought, where the bloody hell is Oberon?
Mate, you can swear on here, it's all right.
Oh, okay.
Was that straight from the Department of Ed? Just said you out there, or?
Yeah, well, I was actually I got the telegram after I got a phone call first. Then the telegram was the official part.
Yeah.
But when the lady rang me up and said you're going to Oberon, I went, where the fuck's Oberon?
Yeah.
And she said, it's out west near Bathurst. I went,
Yeah, it's a bit.
I'm trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
I said, can I just give you a few? Give me a few days? And said, well, you've got to make a decision, otherwise you lose the spot. So the next day I went to the training and saw Bill Anderson, who was an ex-teacher himself.
Yeah.
And in those days it was hard to get a job as a teacher, like a full-time job. And he said, look, mate, just take the job and we'll try and get you back here as soon as we can.
Yeah.
So I took up the job at Oberon High School out near Bathurst, and obviously, I couldn't play footy with them that year.
Did you play country footy? As a group?
I played with the Oberon Tigers.
The Oberon Tigers in Group 10.
In Group 10, I was a player coach.
Yep.
Yeah.
At a tender young age, and so it was good fun, but it was tough footy.
So how's country footy? They don't mind dropping a few in and that sort of thing?
Oh, yeah, it was terrible. I mean, I used to get smashed big time. You'd pass the ball and 30 seconds later someone would smash you in the head. And it was tough footy, but I enjoyed it. But unfortunately, the following year, I think Bill got sacked from South. So I don't know, I wasn't there anyway, so I was stuck there another year. And then I played for country, which was good.
Yeah.
I played for Group 10 and Western Division and that sort of stuff. And it's just a different lifestyle in the country. I quite enjoyed it. But obviously, it takes you back. Would have liked to have been playing, first grade footy in Sydney. That was a big, always my dream.
Yeah.
Never got to do it until much later. So
what got you back to Sydney? Like, how did that all come about?
Oh well, I was just lucky that. Like I said, I played for country. I was really desperate to go back to Sydney, and I just I'm not sure whether West pulled a few strings for me or what happened, but I ended up a job came up at Canterbury Boys High School. They wanted someone who could coach rugby league, who could speak a second language, and I could speak a bit of Lebanese, not very much, but I could speak a bit of Lebanese, and so I bullshitted a bit on my application. Very fluent, and in a school that had a lot of ethnic kids there, and I was the perfect fit. So I was lucky that not only did I get to teach at a school in Sydney, but it was not far from Lidcombe Oval, where West were playing at. And a lot of the kids were West supporters. Even though it was a Canterbury Boys High School, it was actually a Western Suburb school. Yeah. So I had a ball. It was fantastic. So I got to. Saying I didn't enjoy Oberon, I loved that. The school, the kids. The town, it was a great town. We make a lot of friends who I still have friends with now. Yeah. Even after I left Oberon, I remember being at West for a while, and I remember telling Rick Wade, there's a lot of young footy players in Oberon who were, guns, they'd go really well in Sydney, and he ended up signing a few of them. Yeah. Doug Rawlings, who was 5'8", he was a young fella, and he came here and playing a lot of first grade at West.
Yep.
a lot of other.
And now it's a massive feeder for Penrith, I guess. Or
Yeah,
that's
all
what
Group
they do,
10,
all the West,
yeah.
Yeah, but it's a nice rugby league town.
Yeah.
It's only a small town. They always punch above their weight.
Yeah.
And I remember that it's only when you're in a town you realise the history behind the place. And Oberon won 10 premierships in a row, and they had players in those days, back in the 50s and 60s, that players that would represent Australia from the country.
Yeah.
It wasn't like it is these days where unless you're playing in the NRL, you're not going to get a look in, are you?
Because like you probably were one of the last to represent country from the country, not actually playing in Sydney or playing in a major competition. You would have been one of the last. Am I right in saying that?
I don't think I know, but what was different about me, I guess, was that most guys tend to play in the city and they finish their career and they finish their career in the country. Whereas I guess I was the reverse. I was playing in the country at a young age, and so I didn't run on from my first grade game till I was about 25, which is unusual. I guess these days, if you're not in first grade by the time you're 21, you're probably not going to make it. You know,
or even in the top 30.
Yeah, well, being in an NRL squad, it's pretty rare to do that. But I guess that times changed. These days, kids are targeted at a very young age. 15, 16-year-olds are recruited from country or whatever and set up in the systems. There's a lot of stuff happening. They got scouts, and every club's got scouts everywhere, and they get kids from everywhere. New Zealand, New South Wales country, Queensland country.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah. Ollie's gagging for a question. Yeah.
So you said you could speak a little bit of Lebanese. Can you give us a line?
Well, I can swear in I can swear in quite a few languages now. As I said, when I was at Canterbury Boys, we had. I can swear in Greek. I can swear in obviously Lebanese. They had a lot of Islanders boys there. I mean, they were great kids. A lot of them were pretty rough kids. I mean, I remember one time.
What were you teaching at Canterbury Boys?
What was I teaching?
Yeah.
Mainly PE.
Yeah. Was there an element of if you played this Sunday and did you come in? Oh, so what was that yesterday? Or
all the time. But some of the kids would come to the games.
Yeah.
There was one game, I think it was a Panasonic Cup game. We played at Leichhardt. That's those midweek games they used to have.
Yep.
I remember we'd beaten. I think we'd beaten Penrith or. I can't remember if it was Penrith or Balmain. We beat them in a quarter final, so it was unusual for West to. We were going not so good in the competition, but we were going really well in the Panasonic Cup, and there's crowds come on the field in those days. Kids would run on the field. Anyway, I remember getting cheered off the field. It was by all the Canterbury boys were cheering me off the field. It was amazing. Most of the boys I'd coached at footy and all that sort of stuff. But the boys give you a hard time if you've a lot of them were West supporters. They were Canterbury supporters. They support rugby league supporters basically.
Yeah.
But they always give you a hard time. But back in those days, you'd be knocked around a lot after playing a game of footy. I could barely walk on a Monday. But you'd always go to work. You'd turn up at work and you'd be limping around a bit and a bit ginger, but you'd be right by the end of the week and ready to go again. Yeah,
it's funny the divide because I've done some work at schools through St John Vianney all the way through to like Croydon and stuff like that, and it's literally if you have a footy day, it's 50% blue and white and 50% black and gold, and that's all you get, and maybe some dragons. You might get like 3 red jerseys in between, but it is a massive footy, I guess, underappreciated the inner west of just the strength of the rugby league in the community.
Yeah, well, I mean, now I'm living in the Sutherland Shire, so the schools I teach at, mainly Guyamea High School and Endeavour Sports High School, they're all Cronulla or St George. That basically it. So I always wait until West have had a win, and then I'll wear a West polo or a West cap, to remind them.
We'll say I've been to Bangor as well, same thing. So it's Sharks. So Sharks are great.
So we'll go back to playing out West. Who are some of your most better teammates or memorable teammates that you enjoyed playing with? I know the common question or common answer would be, you enjoyed playing with most because you don't want to upset anyone. But was there anyone special that you really enjoyed playing with, though?
Well, it's true because you do. I know that's a stock answer that I have very few teammates I didn't like. Didn't enjoy hanging around with. It was because rugby league.
And that era, I suppose, is much more of a brotherhood. You play for West, you play for West. It's not so much now where I'm off for 800 next year. See, boys, like it's now you dug in and you did what you did.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like obviously we weren't full-time players in those days, but you still trained together most nights of the week. You barely had a night off. You know, like you might have Monday night off, but you have to do your own recovery stuff. But you usually train Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, and then sometimes they'd throw in extra trainings before that. And because you only trained not every night, they were usually long sessions. Like you wouldn't just train for an hour. You'd have to do you might be there for 3 hours on some nights. 2 to 3 hours was quite common. But as far as favourite players, I mean, like I used to knock around with each year. You'd sort of be different, but I'd knock around. When I first started at West, I didn't really know anyone that well because being a first time in the club, and also the fact that I missed most of that first season with a bad knee injury, and so I started the season in reserve grade. And I remember Dallas Donnelly, it was his last year. Yep. And I remember Dallas, he gave me my nickname because everyone used to call me Noisy. So only because the first time I was in the dressing room, I didn't know anyone. I'm standing there, everyone's chatting away, and Dallas just come up to me and called me Noisy. Yeah. And obviously a big guy like Dallas, everyone's going to assume that whatever he says goes. So when he called me Noisy, everyone just assumed, well, that must be his nickname. Yeah. So that became my nickname. It stuck. So that was the very first time I was at the club. But each year I had different guys that I was closer to, but I'm just trying to think which guys that I wasn't that I hung out with the most. But we were always doing stuff together. Early on, I guess blokes like Trevor Cogger, Brett Clark, who's here tonight. I used to hang out with him quite a bit. Big Bruiser Clark, he was a good bloke. Yeah. And then obviously I was in the era where West were at Lidcombe Oval, and then in '87 we moved to Campbelltown. Yep. And that's when things changed a lot then. Not a lot of guys, a lot of new players came in. And obviously things changed with new coaches. Yep. We had a big turnover of coaches. And I was lucky that West had been, all the good guys that coached us. But Ken Gentle was my first coach. He was a great guy. Yeah. He put a lot of work in with very limited resources. I was punched above our weight. We really got with basically a team of sort of leftover players. We still managed to be competitive, and we pushed most teams every game. Yeah.
Just with that, mate. How was it playing with Lee Crooks?
Oh, mate, great player, great guy too. He was only about 21 when he turned up, and just couldn't get over how his ball skills. He had fantastic ball skills, and boy, he could kick a goal too. I still remember one game in the rain at Lidcombe Oval. We played St George, and I'm just trying to think whether I'm pretty sure he either kicked a goal from halfway in the ret. Back in those days, it was just the ball was a lot heavier. Yeah, yeah. I think that was still a leather ball in those days, and it was just amazed how he could kick a ball from anywhere basically. Yeah. But he had amazing ball skills, and only thing he was with Lee. When he first started, he's got that northern accent. You could bet. I still remember one of the first games we played with him. I can't remember who it was against, but I remember we got a try scored against us, and it was a soft try, and we all got behind the goalpost, and he just let everyone fly, let it fly with. And to this day, I don't know what he said because it was just a broad Yorkshire accent, and he just lost it, and the rest, a few of us looked at each other and go, "What the fuck did he just say?" But we got used to him, and he actually ended up captaining the side as well. Yeah. So, but he was a good guy. He was really, and I still stay in touch with him these days.
Great guy, Crooksy.
Yeah, he's been over back to Australia a few times, and I think he's one of those guys. He's a bit of a legend, and being at any club, he'd be. Yeah. But yeah, he's definitely got folklore at West.
Yeah, definitely. And you also got to play with Ellery Hanley at West as well.
Yeah, Ellery was one of the best players I've ever played with. He was just one of those complete footballers. He could break a tackle. He could get offload a ball. He had speed. He had strength. He just had everything. I think he's one of those guys that would, in today's football, would be still just as good, if not better, than most of the guys going around, because he's got that natural talent, natural ability, as well as physical strength and speed.
And so, earlier on this year, we did a show where we got to pick our greatest team, and I believe I picked Ellery as my greatest lock of all time.
It wouldn't surprise me because, like I said, one of the best footballers I've played with or against. He's just a fantastic player. Yeah, just did everything.
The role of the hooker, I guess, from where you came through in the 80s, I suppose you're probably a little bit was there a bit of a Noel Kelly shadow over the club, or was it not really? Or
no, mate, West of Oz had pretty good hookers, and it was and like Noel Kelly obviously is a legend.
Yeah.
One of my biggest thrills ever was getting to meet him. When you go to the reunions, you get to meet players that you idolised when you were younger. And there were guys that were just not much older than me that I got to meet, but blokes like Shane Day and John Purcell and Jack Jeffries. But I still haven't. He's the only hooker I really want to meet that I've never met.
Who's that? Jack Jeffries.
Jack Jeffries.
Yeah.
Arthur Mounier, he's a top bloke and bloody tough as nails. But yeah, the role of hookers changed a lot obviously since those days.
The second half of the question, I guess, would be who were your big tangles with? Was it sort of Benny, or was it?
Benny later, but early on it was blokes like there was a lot. I was unlucky. There was so many good hookers around.
Yeah.
But blokes like obviously Mario Fennick. Yeah, he was a tough. He's the toughest guy, and he's dirty, filthy player.
Yeah.
But off the field, he's the nicest guy you ever want to meet. And great guy. I remember Manly had a guy named Mal Cochran. He was a bloody good hooker. Yeah. Roy Simmons at Penrith.
Yeah.
He was a fantastic hooker, great dummy half. Benny obviously was next level. He could, the role changes at hooker towards the end of the 80s because winning the ball was the main option because scrums were competitive. So that was your main job, to make sure you win the scrums, and then obviously being a good dummy half. Plugging the middle, making sure you're good defensively. As the scrummaging became less important, you had to take more of a charge in controlling the rucks and defensively as well.
Yeah.
So, but then I think if I was starting out now again, I probably wouldn't be a hooker because the roles changed. I'd probably end up being a lock or a second rower because. Yeah. The scrummaging part of it, which was the main part of my game, it changed a lot. Yeah. So I was just lucky. I was also a good defender, and I could set up attack and that sort of stuff.
Any questions before I get into the West questions? Or?
Yeah, well, Noel Kelly, arguably the greatest Magpie of all time. Through my work, I had the privilege of actually writing a biography about him once he unfortunately passed early this year. Are there any Noel Kelly stories you can tell us, or what was your relationship with him? Maybe just a story about an interaction you had with him, because you said you got to meet him, obviously that same position at the Magpies. What's that meeting like between Allan Fallah and Noel Kelly?
Oh, well, obviously I'm in awe of a guy like him. So the first time I met him, I could barely say a word. But most of the stories most of the stories I've heard about Noel from other people, but he's the type of guy that up until last year was when we last went to a get together. He was always the first one to stand up and sing the club song. Blokes would be half-hearted or whatever. He'd have a few drinks. He was just tough as nails. I'm just glad I didn't have to play against him. At his peak, because he's one of those. I've never been scared of another player, but I think if I was in that era playing against Noel Kelly, I would have shit myself. I'd just having to play against someone like that, because he was just tough as nails. He'd put his head where people wouldn't put their foot. He was just. Awesome individual, but a top guy as well. You talk about rugby league, role models and that sort of stuff. But he would always be the best club man ever. He'd always want to be there to support his players. He'd turn up when there were sick players or sick people. He'd be there. He'd be one of the first ones to go and visit them and do stuff like that. He was always one of those guys who would be a beacon, to what you'd want to be like if you were going to be an NRL player, or I mean, a lot of guys these days in the modern game do that sort of stuff, but it's unfortunate that with the way publicity is and the media, there's no headlines in players visiting.
That's right.
Doing stuff or going out of the ordinary to do things, helping people, which is the majority of the NRL players. Yep. But you get a dickhead every now and then that spoils it for everyone else, and then
that's what everyone concentrates on.
Yeah, and they get a bad reputation. So, there are a lot of Noel Kellys out there, but but he's a special one, But like West were lucky; they had so many great players over the years.
About Tommy?
Well, Tommy's one of those. Like he's just an icon.
Yeah.
When you think of West, you think of blokes like Noel Kelly, but you also, as you get towards the 70s and 80s, you start to think of Tommy.
And then later half of the 70s and 80s, it's Dallas, who you mentioned already.
Yeah. Well, obviously, the thing was with Tommy, he was just he was always at the top of his game. He was just a competitor. He always wanted to be the best, and whether it's outplaying his opposite number to making sure his team was on top of other teams, and I'm not sure what the stats are for West's win rate, but when Tommy was playing, I'd guarantee it was very high.
Yeah.
He hated losing as a player.
And where's your heart lie now? So you're a West man through and through. Do you still follow the Tigers? You've drifted out of the game.
Well, you know what? I still follow West.
Yeah.
It's still my club. I still follow the West Magpies because West's reserve grade side is the West Magpies.
And they're on Massey Cup.
And Massey Cup, and they're going back to Lidcombe Oval next season. I can't wait for that.
Oh, wow. That's cool. Talk us through Lidcombe Oval. I know my old man used to go there every Saturday, so he tells me stories. He grew up at Enfield, and it was either Leichhardt or Lidcombe every weekend. Memories of Lidcombe Oval, I suppose, apart from, these days it's just something you see on the train when you go from Penrith to the city.
Well,
so
it was always one of the, it's always been my favourite ground. I guess, I played a lot of games there, but it was one of the. It's always been well looked after. It's a nice field. I guess every NRL ground these days is a good ground.
Yeah.
But that was. But if you go back to Lidcombe right now, it's looked after. It's like a carpet. It's really lush, and the players are going to love it when they see it. The dressing room isn't, even though it's still basically the same. The lockers aren't there, but and some of the signage that was there before. But I think the club's going to try and get that stuff back.
Yeah.
Make it look
awesome.
like the way it was.
Unreal.
Mate, do you have like you said, you do support them still, but do you still get out there and support the Fanatics at the games?
Oh, well, you know what? I try and get to a West Tigers game at least a couple of times a year. I coach my son's team, so I don't get the chance to see all the games. But
how old's your son, and how's that for you? How's coaching life?
Oh yeah, well I've been coaching kids since I was.
Yeah, I suppose it's a career, isn't it? But,
well, even that first year when I was teaching, I was coaching I was playing myself, but I was also coaching kids teams as well. And I've done that for the last 35 years, 38 years, But coaching my son's team, the Guymere Gorillas, under 18s last season. Great bunch of boys. My son's always been a soccer player, so he's only just played league the last couple of years, but he loves the game. He doesn't play it for anything more than enjoyment. And he's got way more athletic ability than I ever had. He's fast, he's elusive, which is more than I ever had. I just had that determination, I guess, to play footy. And he's not as tough as I was, but he's definitely got more athletic ability. I was about to say that, and you said it.
Cool. I guess we'll. Anything to finish on, boys?
Mate, we're just thank you for coming on, mate, and we'll stay in contact and we'll get you on throughout next season. And thanks again for your time, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah. No, it's been a pleasure, and like I said, can't wait for next season to see the West Magpies back at Lidcombe Oval.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
And the West Tigers hopefully winning a few more games.
Yeah, I've got to ask, any thoughts on next year, and what Madge has done and where we're headed, anything?
Oh, obviously, it's West have had a problem, I think, with the way they've recruited players. It's just a basket case in some ways. And obviously there were some guys who looked like they were going to be doing something that didn't come as good as we'd hoped.
Yeah.
But I'm just happy that we've got a team. I think that they're going to hopefully just finish in the top half of the competition. And if you can do that, then anything can happen from there. There's when you're playing first grade rugby league, any team can beat any other team on a given day.
That's it.
And it's all about consistency, though. So that's something that West haven't had for a while. So let's hope they can get a bit more consistent.
On that optimistic note, we'll finish up. Thank you again so much for your time. Enjoy the rest of the night, and hopefully you chat soon.
Thank you, guys.